My name is Clara Jensen, and I was 15 years old, a freshman at Willow Creek High School in our quiet little town in Ohio. Willow Creek was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, or at least they thought they did. For me, it often felt like I was living in a bubble right in the middle of it all, observing rather than fully participating. My brain, you see, works a little differently than most, which my individualized education program teacher, Ms. Evans, calls neurodivergent. It means I often notice details others miss, and I thrive on order and logic, which is great for school but sometimes makes social stuff a real puzzle. I loved learning, especially when I could dive deep into a subject. I could spend hours researching, organizing information, and making everything perfect. The downside, in group projects, this often meant I became the unofficial workhorse, doing all the heavy lifting while others coasted by on my efforts. It was frustrating watching my hard work get attributed to a group that barely lifted a finger. I was tired of feeling invisible, of being the one who always delivered but never truly got the credit or the respect I deserved. That year in Mr. Harrison's history class, a big project was announced. It was a massive one, worth a huge chunk of our grade, a slideshow presentation on waste disposal methods in the 1930s. Honestly, the topic sounded kind of boring at first, but then my brain started whirring, thinking about the old photographs, the inventions, the social changes. It actually sounded like a fascinating dive into how people lived back then. Then came the group assignments. Mr. Harrison read out the names, and my heart sank when he paired me with two girls, Sarah and Emily, who were sweet enough but notoriously laid back when it came to schoolwork. And then there was Blake Miller. Blake was the kind of guy who thought being loud and making jokes at other people's expense was the pinnacle of coolness. He had a knack for finding my sensitive spots, often making snide comments about how focused I was or how I was always in my own little world, knowing full well it was a jab at how my brain worked. He was my nemesis in the classroom, constantly making me feel small and unheard. Suddenly, this interesting history project felt like a trap. I could already see myself doing all the work, probably getting teased by Blake for my dedication and watching him swagger around, claiming partial credit for something he'd barely touched. I was deeply unsatisfied with the thought of this project unfolding the way every other group project had. I wanted to do well, of course, but more than that, I wanted to be acknowledged for my efforts and not have Blake Miller get away with being a freeloader again. This time, something had to be different. My initial effort was to try and be organized, to set a clear path for the group. I sent out a polite email suggesting we meet after school to outline our plan, assign specific tasks, and set mini deadlines. I even attached a rough template for the slideshow to get us started. Sarah and Emily replied with vague promises, saying they'd try to make it or had other plans. Blake didn't even respond. I felt that familiar knot of frustration tightening in my stomach. When we finally managed to gather during a free period, it was clear no one had given it much thought. I proposed splitting the research. Sarah could focus on household waste, Emily on industrial, Blake on municipal infrastructure, and I would handle the overall presentation design and historical context. Blake just shrugged, scrolled on his phone, and said, "Whatever, Clara, you're the brainiac, you figure it out." The girls nodded along, seeming relieved. It was a small win for them, a big loss for me, confirming my fears. I tried to follow up, creating a shared online document where we could all add our findings. For days, it remained largely empty, save for a few random bullet points Sarah and Emily had copied directly from the first Google search result without bothering to check if it was relevant to the 1930s. Blake added one gif of a cartoon character shrugging with the caption, "Waste is waste, am I right?" It wasn't funny. The problem quickly grew bigger. I saw them starting a separate slideshow, a sad collection of poorly formatted slides with minimal information, clearly based on generic online searches and not the specific historical documents Mr. Harrison had provided. When I gently pointed out that we should be using the assigned primary sources, Blake rolled his eyes. "Relax, Clara," he sneered. "It's just history. Nobody actually cares about old plumbing prices. You always overthink everything." His words stung, a subtle jab at my neurodivergent need for accuracy and detail. It felt like a direct attack on my way of thinking, making me feel alienated and misunderstood. It solidified my resolve. If they weren't going to put in the effort, I would. But this time, it wouldn't be for them. I started my own slideshow, pouring hours of my free time into it. I used a sophisticated yet historically appropriate template. I meticulously researched municipal budgets from the 1930s to find actual prices for plumbing supplies and waste management equipment. I dug through old newspaper archives to understand public opinion on waste disposal, finding fascinating stories about early recycling efforts and the challenges of sanitation. I didn't just find information, I understood it. I came up with a clever group name, the Willow Creek Waste Wranglers, and an even catchier slogan, turning trash into treasure one decade at a time. My slideshow was thorough, engaging, and polished. I felt a surge of pride in my work, but it was mixed with a burning resentment. I was doing an exceptional job, yet I knew it would likely be ignored or worse, co-opted by the others. The day before the presentation, I was utterly exhausted. I flipped between my meticulously crafted slideshow and their pathetic, half-finished one. Theirs was a mess of mismatched fonts, vague bullet points, and images that looked like they were pulled from clip art instead of historical archives. The girls, Sarah and Emily, messaged me apologizing for not doing more, promising to make it up to me but offering no actual help for the looming deadline. Blake, predictably, was completely silent. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. I had put in so much effort, so much passion, and it seemed destined to be either hidden away or used as a shield for their laziness. I went to the library to gather my thoughts, needing some quiet space. As I walked past the study carrels, I heard familiar voices. It was Blake laughing loudly with his friends Mark and Kevin. They were talking about the history project. "Dude, I'm so glad I got Clara in my group," Blake bragged, his voice dripping with false casualness. "She always does the heavy lifting, just cruises through everything, easy A for me. She's got that special brain, so she likes to work hard, good for her, good for us." His friends chuckled. The comment about my special brain hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just about freeloading anymore, it was about mockery, about him using my neurodivergence, the very thing that made me dedicated and thorough, as a punchline. He was making fun of me to his friends, trivializing my efforts and reducing me to a convenient tool. All my hard work, all my sleepless nights, all my genuine interest in the topic felt cheapened, soiled by his smug arrogance. I felt a hot flush of humiliation spread through me, quickly followed by a cold, hard resolve. I was defeated, yes, but also seething with a quiet fury. I wouldn't just sit back and let him get away with it this time. All my progress felt lost, but a new, powerful determination began to simmer beneath the surface. I was not going to let him turn my passion into his easy ride. Not anymore. The next morning, the air in Mr. Harrison's classroom crackled with presentation jitters. I walked in, my meticulously prepared flash drive tucked firmly in my pocket. A new kind of calm settled over me. I wasn't nervous about the presentation itself, but about the confrontation I was about to initiate. I knew I couldn't just stand there and let Blake walk all over me again. After the bell rang, I sought out Ms. Evans, my individualized education program teacher, who was usually in the administrative office before classes started. I quickly but thoroughly explained everything: the two slideshows, the lack of participation, Blake's dismissive comments, and the final straw of overhearing him. Ms. Evans listened intently, her expression one of understanding and quiet indignation. She always championed fairness and celebrated my unique strengths. "Clara," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "you've done exceptional work. You deserve to be recognized for it. We need to handle this in a way that highlights your contribution fairly." We quickly strategized. Her plan was simple yet brilliant in its execution. She would quietly enter Mr. Harrison's class just before our group was called, giving me a silent signal of support. My task was to calmly but directly bring up the existence of two slideshows to Mr. Harrison, putting the onus on the group to choose, knowing full well their version was unfinished. When Mr. Harrison called our group, the Willow Creek Waste Wranglers, up to the front, I took a deep breath. Ms. Evans, true to her word, had slipped into the back of the classroom, her presence a silent fortress behind me. My heart thumped, but my voice was steady. "Mr. Harrison," I began, stepping slightly forward, my gaze meeting his, "we actually have two versions of the project. I've prepared one that's complete and ready to go, but I believe Sarah and Emily also started one and Blake contributed to it as well. Could we just quickly decide as a group which one we'd like to present?" Sarah and Emily exchanged wide-eyed, panicked glances. Blake, who had been lazily leaning back in his chair, suddenly sat up, looking annoyed. He opened his mouth, probably to protest or make a joke, but then he saw Ms. Evans in the back, his bravado visibly deflated. Mr. Harrison, sensing the underlying tension and seeing Ms. Evans's supportive nod towards me, narrowed his eyes slightly. "Two versions?" he asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. "All right, group, which presentation are we going with?" The girls mumbled something about their version not being quite ready and needing a little more work. Blake, however, tried to bluster. "Ours is fine, Mr. Harrison," he insisted, but when the teacher gestured to the projector screen where the half-finished, abysmal title slide of their presentation was currently displayed, even Blake couldn't deny its incompleteness. It was a glaring contrast to the neat, professional aesthetic of my own work that was hinted at on my flash drive. "Well," Mr. Harrison said, his gaze sweeping over the clearly unprepared faces of Sarah, Emily, and Blake, "it seems Clara has taken the initiative to ensure a complete project. Let's see Clara's presentation then. And of course, everyone in the group will still be expected to present a slide, regardless of which version we use." A wave of relief mixed with a surge of triumphant energy washed over me. This was it. My slideshow, titled "The Willow Creek Waste Wranglers: Turning Trash into Treasure One Decade at a Time," sprang to life on the screen. The template was elegant, the fonts crisp, the historical images vibrant. Mr. Harrison nodded approvingly, even chuckling softly at the slogan. I presented the introduction with confidence, explaining the scope of the project and introducing our group. Then came the credit slide, a moment I had envisioned with delicious anticipation. In bold, clear letters, it read, President Clara Jensen. Beneath my name, chief researchers Sarah Miller and Emily Roberts, giving them respectable, if not overly demanding, titles. And then the poetic justice I had meticulously crafted, moral support Blake Miller. The title remained visible on the screen for a solid 10 seconds, long enough for every eye in the classroom to take it in. Blake's face, which had been a picture of annoyance and then growing dread, turned a spectacular shade of crimson. A few stifled giggles rippled through the classroom, particularly from his own friends, Mark and Kevin, who couldn't quite contain their amusement at his assigned role. Then came the presentation itself. I had strategically assigned Blake the longest, most detailed slide, covering the complex regulations surrounding municipal composting and early landfill development in the Midwest. He stumbled through it, clearly unprepared, stammering over terms like anaerobic digestion and methane capture, looking directly at the floor the entire time. Every time his eyes flickered up, they landed on moral support Blake Miller, still prominently displayed in the corner of the screen while he struggled through his assigned section. The snickers grew louder, no longer so stifled, making his humiliation even more profound. He was a picture of squirming discomfort, the class's bully utterly deflated and exposed. Sarah and Emily, to their credit, presented my slides with more effort, looking somewhat chastened but also relieved that the presentation was actually good. The presentation concluded with resounding success. Mr. Harrison praised the depth of research, the visual appeal, and the clear organization of the information. He specifically commended me for the thoroughness and creativity. I earned a well-deserved A for the project, and Sarah and Emily received a decent passing grade due to the quality of the overall work, tempered by Mr. Harrison's comments about collective effort. Blake, despite his fumbling, got a passing grade as well, but the numerical value was utterly overshadowed by the public humiliation he endured. I didn't just get a good grade, I had reclaimed my intellectual property, my effort, and my dignity. I stood up for myself, not with aggression, but with meticulous excellence and a clever, well-placed title that cut him far deeper than any direct insult could have. I felt a profound sense of fulfillment, a quiet satisfaction that resonated deep within me. The poetic justice of him being labeled moral support for a project he mocked and neglected was more satisfying than any scolding from a teacher. He had always taken credit for others' work, and now he was given a title that perfectly encapsulated his lack of contribution, broadcasted for all his friends to witness. After that day, things in Mr. Harrison's class and indeed around Willow Creek High started to shift for me. I was no longer the automatic doormat for group projects. Other students seemed to think twice before trying to take advantage of my willingness to work hard. Sarah and Emily were genuinely nicer to me, often offering a friendly greeting in the halls or even asking if I wanted to study together for other classes. Blake, on the other hand, actively avoided my gaze. He stopped the teasing, stopped the snide comments, and whenever I saw him, he would quickly turn away or find something else to look at. My reputation had changed. I was still known as smart and capable, but now there was an added layer of quiet strength. People saw that I wouldn't be pushed around, that I knew how to advocate for myself, and that I wasn't afraid to use my intelligence to make a point. I had learned the power of standing up for myself and utilizing my support systems like Ms. Evans. I realized my neurodivergence wasn't a weakness to be exploited, but a unique strength that allowed me to focus, excel, and when necessary, orchestrate a rather satisfying revenge. I felt truly seen and valued, perhaps for the first time in a long time. A few weeks later, another group project was assigned in English class. Blake wasn't in my group this time, a small mercy I hadn't even had to wish for. But two other kids, Mark and Kevin, known for being a bit on the lazy side, were after class. As I was packing up my books, they approached me looking distinctly nervous. "Hey, Clara," Mark started hesitantly, shuffling his feet. We're in a group for English, and we were wondering, do you have any tips for getting started on these big projects? Kevin chimed in, "Yeah, you're always so organized. Any advice?" I looked at them, a genuine, confident smile spreading across my face. It wasn't a mean smile or a smug one, but a smile of self-assuredness. I knew exactly why they were asking. They respected my ability, but more importantly, they feared my quiet strength. They didn't want to end up as moral support on my next credit slide. "Teamwork is key," I told them, my voice calm and clear. "And always read the assignment carefully, break it down into smaller parts. Everyone contributes and everyone takes responsibility." I didn't need to be aggressive or even mention the history project. My reputation now spoke for itself, a silent warning and a testament to my capabilities. I had found my voice and my power not through aggression, but through meticulous excellence and a cleverly placed title. And as I walked out of the classroom, I knew that in Willow Creek, Ohio, Clara Jensen was finally truly seen, truly valued, and truly in control of her own story.